Greetings and welcome to GatherVerse Women's Health Summit Day 2. We're coming off the heels of an incredible GatherVerse Women's Health Summit Day 1. There was much expressed yesterday and much to unpack, similar to today, if not even more. GatherVerse meets at the intersection of emerging technologies and humanity. We take keen, firm guidance when it comes to the attention and awareness of these emerging technologies that are hyperscaling in this world, with specific interest to accessibility and education, community development, equality, safety, privacy, wellness, well-being, ethics, care, compassion, kindness. What does it mean in this world when we look at this intersection of AI? What does it mean to wellness as a whole for both women and men? Later on this year, we have a men's health summit specifically dedicated to answering many of the questions that have been addressed this week already. When we talk about wellness, when we talk about innovation, product development, and platforms, when we talk about disease and ailment and opportunity, setbacks, obstacles, at GatherVerse, we prefer to address these answers, these questions that are residually present before us in this world of frontier intelligence head on. We're happy to see so many of you that have come to join us at GatherVerse Women's Health Summit Day 2 at gatherverse.live. And there are multiple different areas and where we stream from around the world, transmetropolitan, transcontinental. There's never been more of an important time to have this discussion. We have an incredible roundtable that we're about to be presented with of leaders in speaking and expression who are not only in the trenches, but are inventing them as well. At GatherVerse, we assemble all different types of culture, humans, people, hearts. There's never been more of an important time for human preservation and expression. We meet in global assembly to gather and to present, to understand, to share, to listen. When we think about wellness, when I think about wellness, I was challenged with putting together this 30th GatherVerse global virtual event by a dear friend and a stranger. The stranger said to me, "Christopher, what happens when I go into a hospital as a woman and I'm using a device, perhaps in surgery, perhaps in being diagnosed, and it's 100% artificial intelligence, predominantly made by a man? What am I to think of this?" I had no answer. Another friend said, "Christopher, who is in deep ailment," she said, "there's never been more of a pressing and urgent time to have a summit for women's health." And I asked her why. Because at this intersection and how fast things are moving, no one else is having this discussion. We do our very best to catch up to game speed and to keep up with the cadence of what we see happening in this world on these subjects. But for now, we bring you to our first roundtable of the day, dealing in holistic wellness, bridging physical, mental, and digital health in the age of AI advancement, spearhead and led by Naomi Jarvis. She is not alone. We are not alone. May our gather be well.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Welcome to our roundtable panel discussion today at GatherVerse's Women's Health Summit This is our global forum dedicated to exploring how emerging technologies are transforming women's wellness around the world. My name is Nyambi Jarvis, and I'm also honored to serve as the moderator today while we discuss holistic wellness, bridging physical, mental, and digital health in the age of AI advancement. As the founder of SkinAura AI, my journey has been driven by a passion for leveraging artificial intelligence to create more equitable healthcare outcomes. At SkinAura, we're expanding efforts to build inclusive data sets that truly represent Black and Brown women. A key part of this work also involves our use of the Monk model that captures the nuances of diverse skin tones, ensuring our algorithms will deliver accurate, personalized insights for women, regardless of her skin color. Today, I'm really excited to bring together thought leaders from various sectors, ranging from holistic wellness and cultural storytelling to neuroscience and neurodiversity advocacy. And we all engage in a dialogue about the future of women's health in this digital age. So this conversation will also delve into critical questions around access, personalization, healing modalities, and community-driven innovation. I look forward to exploring how we can collectively harness technology to overcoming longstanding challenges and create a more inclusive future for women's wellness worldwide. So before we get started today, I'd like our panelists to briefly introduce ourselves because we've got a robust conversation ahead of us. And we'll go ahead and start with Elena. Elena, tell us of what brings you here today.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor and pleasure to be on this platform and discussing progress with all of you. So my background, so I'm a neurophysiologist, but my background is in neuroscience. I actually met Ms. Nyambi at a summit just a few weeks ago out in New York. So we connected very well, and she, told me about this summit, and she said, that I could be here to add value to the group. So I look forward to that.
Thanks so much, Elena. And yes, I was really honored to be sitting next to a neuroscientist, right? And so I said, oh my goodness, I really would love for you to join this conversation. Let's get into some discussion about neuroplasticity and how we remain well in this digital age. So I'm going to continue, and it's just basically based on how I see you on the screen and not a hierarchy. So Heather, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Heather, and much like Elena, I am very passionate about neuroscience, which is part of what inspired me to set up Autistically Yours, which will be a tech platform where users can virtually rent out their time and skill set to teach life skills to people who are on the spectrum or neurodivergent. It's a way to hopefully combat the long wait list for services that people have and the gaps and efficiencies for the services that are being provided, especially with our current administration.
Thank you so much, Heather. I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Sure. And next up is Dr. Latanya Taylor. Oh boy, we go back more than 20 years. One of my sheroes in the women's empowerment space, and very honored to have you on the panel today. So Dr. Latanya, tell us about some of the work that you're doing now before we get started. You need to unmute. You should be good now.
Okay.
Perfect.
I didn't mute myself. Thank you so much for inviting me. And yes, we do go way back. And over the 20 years or so that I've been serving women in this space of wellness and holistically, I have included some of the digital technology that supports us in looking at our chakras, our meridians, and all of our centers as using the AO scan technology. So I look forward to talking more about that because it gives you so much information. And when you combine it with the work that we do in the spiritual and in the transformative arena, it becomes such a holistic offering to women to look into their health.
Thanks so much, Dr. Latanya. We look forward to this discussion. So Allison, tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Sure, Allison Jackson. I am a wellness strategist, and I really look at the employee experience when it comes to the intersection of communication and wellness, especially now with technology taking such a forefront with AI. Really kind of taking a look at how that impacts the employee experience, both for companies and individuals. So I'm super excited to be here.
Glad to have you. Hi, Kendall. Tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing. Excited to have you here today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kendall, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sophia AI. And what we do is we're just trying to bring the experience of having essentially what is a postpartum doula to a digital space. So we're using AI in order to bring evidence-based answers, the answers you deserve and want, to directly to you on your phone. So we're leveraging technology, not trying to be afraid of it, and trying to bring therefore more personalized support to folks during that. And I have a background in public health and tech, international development, and bring those three perspectives to work, and excited for this conversation today.
Likewise, and thank you for bringing all of that wonderful intersectionality together for us today. And certainly last but not least, Dr. Vicki Johnson, one of my mentors, and again, she rose in women's wellness and empowerment space. Dr. Vicki, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what brought you here today?
Thank you so much. I am grateful to be here. Been fighting with technology, believe it or not, to get here, but grateful to be here. You know, my passion is women's wellness in the corporate space. I am a part of the Sunrise Project, which is a mental health support organization and online community for parents of children, young adult children who are dealing with anxiety, depression, suicide ideation, just bringing that digital support to families. And also am the founder of Soul Wealth, which is a community of sisterhood, sacred sisterhood, where we're just bringing different digital tools and in-person connection to support women's wellness. And lastly, recently entered into the sound healing space doing hybrid sessions, and really, really passionate and excited about just that tool of healing, especially in today's times with what's going on. People are looking, especially women, are looking for opportunities and spaces to exhale.
Absolutely, Dr. Vicki. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to move us into our set of questions, and this was a perfect segue. And when I was looking to put the panel together, I was thinking about, okay, we're in this digital space, and there is this rapid evolvement with AI and technology in general, and having worked in tech for the last 2 decades. It's like, okay, I really would like to talk about how we merge traditional healing modalities with the new tools that are being developed. So here's our first question, and I am going to direct this towards Dr. Latanya, Heather, and then Vicki. And so how do you integrate traditional wellness practices with emerging digital tools to address the diverse physical, emotional, and mental health needs of women? So I'll start with you, Latanya.
Okay. For years, I've been working with women on energy, right? Their energy when it comes to their body, their mind, and their spirit. And for many of us who are in this alternative health and wellness field, we've always had to use our body, our mind, and our spirit in doing this work. And with integrating these new technologies that are, I call this technology, it's a little scan that scans your frequencies, but it gives me a reading, for instance, of what's going on between the mind, the body, and the spirit. And so now I don't have to pull from a client. I don't have to use all of my energy or leave a session exhausted, because when you use this technology, it goes right into your own energy. And now you can't hide, you can't run. And it tells a story, and it opens a woman up, in my case mainly women, but it is for families, for me to be able to see what's going on. And a lot of times it's early detection. It is nourishing to those who are currently receiving other type of care. So it works with allopathic medicine as well. And it is so specific in terms of what's going on the internal, but giving you a roadmap of how to supplement your life. So for me, and then I use the spiritual. I use my own spiritual gifts, because many of us who are diviners, or we're able to use indigenous plant medicine, which, you know, a lot of people go into ceremonies or coaching or counseling blind. They want to see why certain things happen. This allows a person to receive a customized look into what's happening to their own energy body. That's one of the ways that I'm using it, and I call it frequency.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I'd encourage everyone to connect with Dr. Latanya online. I love the fact that you are merging ancient technology, right? Because they are technologies. That's not something new with current development or evolving technologies today. So Heather, why don't you tell us more about Autistically Yours and what you're working on?
Sure. So it's still a work in progress, but I have a lot of big dreams. Ever since I was 12 years old, and I learned that the Green Bay Packers were owned by their town, I wanted to create a conscious capitalist company. So the foundation side of my startup will be used to train our AI, and we're going to use AI to help our customers pay for our services through medical data, marketing collateral, and other things that we can use. And then once their ROI is returned back to like is paid in full, the users would have the opportunity to gain commission from the rental of their own medical data, so that scientists can have a bird's eye view and a close-up view of what actually is going on, in a woman's body, a neurodiverse body. So we could then have them pay with anything from anecdotal evidence that the keto diet, to a brain scan, to here is a piece of my journal or a therapy exercise. The idea is we use AI and our long history of sharing stories to basically make science work for us.
Thanks for sharing, Heather. We'll hear more about this later. Appreciate it. And Dr. Vicky, you talked about the sound bowls, but let's hear more about your overall modality packages that you use.
Well, I'm sitting here and actively listening and observing. I think I'm probably the oldest one on the panel, which means I'm probably the most resistant among the group to the digital space. So I'm excited that the women that I work with who are registered and watching today, it's an opportunity to educate, because when you've only been accustomed to practicing in person or connecting in person, my generation is very resistant to change, to technology, to a virtual experience. So I get the opportunity, as I have done over the last 25 or 30 years, to be a trailblazer. So grateful to have our big sister Latanya on here, because she's kind of dragging me slowly into the space. And so for me, just introducing the technology of sound healing to my community, some are open, some are not. So for me, I'm in a very open space of educating. With my background in ministry, as an elder, there's also that resistance to this new technology. So I am in the space of blazing a trail, educating, and at the same time determined and committed to offer sound healing in hybrid spaces, because it works, right? It is an ancient technology. I love that you use that language. But I've been gathering women in community spaces now for over 30 plus years. So I am going first right? And have been experimenting with different digital technologies to see how we can integrate it. Because if I know for sure, Nyambi, if we don't integrate and innovate, we'll become obsolete, right? And I am committed for my community of women, and I'm talking about 35, 40 plus, really. The median age of the women I serve is about 45. You know, I don't want us to be left behind. So looking forward to learning more and, you know, sharing what is still relevant and effective as we move forward.
Awesome, Dr. Vicky. So thank you. And, you know, you may not think that you've been on the forefront of technology, but you have been, because you've been able to keep these communities of women together. One that I'm honored to be a part of your communities, or the greater sisterhood, and having watched you move in global spaces. And when technology was more limited as it pertained to social interaction, we still made it work, right? And
Yeah.
with all of the organizations coming together, literally tens of thousands of women were affected, pre-Facebook, right? Pre-social media. We were still doing the work. Okay, so let's just move into our next question. And I'm going to direct this to Allison and Kendall. In what ways does your platform use storytelling and personal narratives to reshape the conversation around women's health and wellness? So let's start with you, Kendall.
You know, as you can see, I'm a Black woman, proud Black woman, and I am a firm believer that we need to be part of this conversation from early on. I'll admit I was a bit, you know, hesitant about incorporating AI, just having conversations with other folks that in this space. Just, you know, when you look at the folks that are at the forefront of this bigger AI conversation, they tend to not look like people like me. And so that really just sparked for me how we can be leveraging this really useful technology in order to bring this, you know, this help and this assistance, this information to folks that look like me. So all that's to say is, so I think that it's really important to be telling the stories of like my own, you know, it's not just from a technology perspective. Like I have lived experience, like Sophia was, you know, the byproduct of what was a curiosity around birth and why I was only hearing negative birth stories, it felt like, for a really long time. And so I pursued public health and wanted to apply this in a, you know, international development perspective. And then flash forward to a decade later, and I had a fairly negative birth experience myself, having had, you know, tons of education and experience as a doula as well. Thought I was super prepared, but you know, we all know the statistics, like birthing in America as a Black woman, despite your levels of education, is a really harrowing experience. So I like leading with that story because I think it helps build trust in the fact that this technology that is newer, like I, you know, firmly believe it has the ability to push the needle in a really positive way. And so I like to use that and want to highlight, therefore, stories from people from multiple backgrounds in order to make sure there's a confidence built in. And I want to be part of that conversation so that these algorithms, these technologies are built with diversity of thought in mind, and not just being built by a bunch of white men out there who don't have this experience at all. So it's really critical to me that I continue to highlight my story and the stories of others that don't look just like me too, to continue to make sure that this works for all of us.
Plus one on that, Kendall. You know, I think your work is so powerful because you're doing a couple of things. You're removing the stigma that women may feel around the birthing process, whether it's positive or negative, but there are different experiences within the experience itself, right? That number one. And then two, looking for ways to amplify their voices and those experiences utilizing technology. So thank you for sharing that. And we look forward to hearing more from you. Okay, so Allison, tell us about your platform and what you're doing.
Yeah, so I think, with the age of AI and technology, it's really important to have authentic storytelling. And that means bringing forward those stories about women's health and wellness around menopause, around burnout, self care. To Dr. Vicky's point, I'm also a fellow sound healer, bringing those different modalities to the workplace and sharing those so that people have an understanding of how they have such a positive impact. So for me, it's really around that authenticity, bringing those real stories, making sure they're not AI washed. I love AI for like brainstorming and coming up with new ideas, but those authentic stories still need to be from individuals highlighting what's important for women's health.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Well, I think this is a really great segue into our next question, and it's for Elena. Elena, I'd like to know, how do recent advances in brain research influence our approach to women's health? And what do these insights mean?
So,
Mm-hmm.
so in terms of advances that we made, I mean, in terms of like neuroscience, is such a vast field. So in particular, it's like we can focus on like neuroplasticity and how AI has helped in terms of, advancing brain health in particular. So when we think about neuroplasticity, we can think about, how can we improve like our cognitive processes, and with AI and all the apps that's available. So when we think about, for example, like brain games, so that has definitely helped in terms of improving brain health. So we can go from that all the way to, so I work in the operating room. So we've advanced even technology in there in terms of how we do brain surgeries, right? So we can now get a little more specific, especially when we're looking at tumors and being more directive with that. So that's how we've definitely advanced in all areas, whether it be, in the hospital or neuroscience research itself.
Wow, thanks for sharing. When we met, and you said, "Yeah, I'm a neuroscientist," and I said, "Oh gosh, I'm really lucky to be sitting right next to you right now." And so I had a ton of questions that I wanted to ask as a woman, as a maturing woman, as a woman who's experienced mom brain, brain fog, certainly midlife mental issues that people don't really talk about, sitting in meetings and then completely forgetting what the next thought was going to be. Can you talk a little bit about maybe what we can do to create new neural pathways? Or
Okay.
you talked about plasticity. What does that look like?
Right, sure. So speaking of, brain fog, I think even, I myself am guilty of that, spacing out. And I think in today's, space of like health and wellness, and especially mental, I think meditation is definitely a good route to take in terms of kind of calming that brain down. And also, establishing tools that can kind of help guide you through the day, right? So kind of keep you on task. And I think some of those tools are available to kind of keep you, on point on, how you need to kind of navigate your day. But I think, in terms of kind of improving that, kind of getting out of that fog, I think, meditation is definitely kind of at the forefront for like mental wellness and like that neuroplasticity.
Thank you for sharing that. So Heather, I'm going to jump back to you because I think that this also moves into a discussion about advocacy and accessibility. So can you share how your work will address the unique healthcare challenges faced by neurodiverse women or people, and what digital strategies have proven most effective in bridging those access gaps? Like, how do you plan to do that through your platform, or are there other tools that you can share with our viewers?
Sure. I feel like the biggest asset I have for my users is the 29 years of experience I have living with Tourette's and not knowing it, followed by the 32 years of experience I have kind of living inside an autistic and neurodivergent body without knowing. Because I built up habits that I feel are beneficial and one that were negative. So I didn't, because I wasn't aware of the stigma, it wasn't weighing down on me in that same way. So although something did feel off. So I feel like I have the added bonus of having this long period of experience, basically throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticked. And that's how I got interested in the idea of rewiring my brain, because I kept hitting like this mental block. So my goal is to get enough information from people who are diagnosed with neurodivergence or late in life and put together like a database of what works, what doesn't. And there's so many tools that we can have access to now that we don't know are neurodivergent friendly, like sensory free leggings without seams. We can build a database of products, supports, and systems that are being designed for mental health that could also benefit neurodiversity. So we're at this kind of crossroads where it's both dangerous to be neurodivergent with our current administration, but it's also celebrated. So we want to find that middle ground there.
Thanks for sharing that, Heather. You know, having spoken with many women and experiencing it myself in terms of advocating for my own children, many times as we're looking for tools for other people, we find tools for ourselves, and or also recognize that there are things that we may be lacking and need to advocate for ourselves as well, either in the home, in the workplace, and certainly in educational settings as well. So thank you for sharing that. So for the remainder of our discussion, we're going to have some general questions for the panelists. And I'm not really sure how I'm going to manage who says what when, but I'm going to start with the next question. And this really is in place for us to reflect on how digital transformation is reshaping access to care and empowering communities. So let's go on to the next question, which is, what innovative digital strategies have you found most effective in engaging women from diverse backgrounds and driving actionable change in the realm of health and wellness? So in the spirit of democracy, if you just want to raise your hand, if you want to answer, please do. Otherwise, I'm going to call on someone.
I'll jump in.
Thanks, Dr. Vicki.
I also have a daily podcast called the Soul Wealth Radio Show, and it's wealthy conversations that nurture the soul. And for me, I am committed to maintaining connection. Is so important through authentic conversations, transparency, and vulnerability. And what has been most interesting for me, as well as dcradio.gov, which is the platform where our station is housed and I record my show, I have guests that I speak with. And having over 500 plus episodes, what has been most fascinating to all of us is that my largest audience is in Singapore. And then number 2, Germany. And then the United States. So I am just really proud of the work we've been doing since December of 2019, and to not underestimate, that's what I want to say, the power of using your voice via whatever tools are available to you. Like I said, I'm not necessarily an early adopter. I'm going to drive something till the wheels fall off. But, the power of our voices, I think, is so important to highlight, especially during Women's History Month and around women's health. But using all of the different modalities and technologies that are available, we are having impact. and not just here in our country, but globally. So I just wanted to insert that to kind of kick off the conversation so you wouldn't call me and I wouldn't be ready. I'm just joking. Just kidding, just kidding. But
Thanks,
I,
thanks for sharing.
I'd like to pick up from my dear sister, because we've shared many communities together, and also what Heather said resonates with me when you talk about neurodivergence, ADHD, and also the work, right? Particularly Black women who are considered the work mules of, the 92%, as we know. We've been the 92% for so long, but now how that impacts our health is carrying stories. You talked about storytelling. Some of you all have seen my work on Young Will Fix My Life. But the people see that work, but oftentimes diminish the work of doing of holistic processes, not just going to a women's conference and being motivated, going to church and going to the altar call, but actually looking into your body, because your body is always speaking. It's giving you a message. Our body is the first messenger. But if we've been taught to deny the body, not to have pleasure, only to intervene when there's pain, we're cut off from our senses. And Heather talked about neurodivergence, and how that connects with storytelling is that when you have a population that is so sensitive, but oftentimes is treated as though their health does not matter in traditional healthcare systems, sometimes all we have is one another. All we have is our stories. All we have sometimes is another woman, to Dr. Vicky's point, telling her story, particularly when it comes to symptoms. I thank good God for TikTok, okay? Because, Facebook we pretend like we do in our hometown and all of that, and Instagram is for show. But when we hear people saying, all these years I've judged myself, I didn't know that I was neurodivergent. That could be me. All these years, ADHD. I hear pieces of my own story, but we've grown up calling it things like the black sheep, or feeling rejected and casted out and casted from other people, being different because you're spiritually attuned. Well, right now we're in a season where we're going to need all of this alternative health to stay well. And that means that we are going to need each other.
Well, I knew you were going to bring it, Dr. Latanya. So thank you for that. And I'm just going to share my own personal story, even though I'm moderating. But what resonates with what you were just sharing, I have been dealing with hypertension since my 30s. Grew up vegetarian, lived a relatively healthy lifestyle, but just could not get the hypertension under control. Stroke levels. I'm not overweight. All of these things, right? And this is part of what led me to Skin Aura. One of the ways that I work on centering myself and bringing my cortisol levels down and reconnecting, recentering, is I work on my skin. And it gives me a chance to stop during the day, think about what has happened, process. I'm still connected with people. I'm using technology. I'm scanning to see what's going on, what's popped up today, what is the result of it. And I'm more intentional about how things manifest themselves outwardly through my skin, which of course is our largest organ, and seeing the interconnectedness of this. So I am thankful for technology, for these communities where the conversations are being held on platforms that we love or maybe don't love so much. And then the genesis of the new platforms that we are developing. So in that vein, Allison, talk to us a little bit more about what you're doing.
Yeah. So, you talk about building community and sharing, stories. I think it's important to highlight, like your story, Nyambi. about like what you're going through and how you solved it. Because I think that's how we spread the word, because different things are going to work for different people, whether it's sound healing or maybe hearing great stories through Dr. Vicky's podcast. I really believe that the way that technology is today, that we could, it's global, it's international. We could reach so many different people in so many different areas, that if someone has an issue, it's easier to find other people with those issues that you can relate to and be able to create those communities. So that's what I personally love, is finding those spiritual people, that the other alternative healing modalities. And I'm really trying to bring those to corporate, because I feel like corporate employees globally, we all need to look at the various healing modalities available to each other.
Absolutely. And especially with the whole return to office mandates, after people have settled themselves with hybrid or remote working, which was a healing place for many people as well. It's important that they have an outlet throughout the day, and you can definitely utilize technology to grab your 15 minutes of sanity. Okay, so let's go on to the next question. How do you address cultural, socioeconomic, and geographical barriers through your work, ensuring that women worldwide receive equitable health support in an increasingly digital age? And Kendall, I'm going to throw that one to you first, and then the other panelists can jump in.
For sure. So, creating Sophia in a, mobile app was a really intentional choice. And that was because, that way I can reach the depths of the earth. Like at this point, like there are very few spots on this planet at this stage that folks don't have access to a cell phone and can have this ability to do this. And while in my world of, like wishes and everything, I wish that everyone could have someone physically present as a postpartum support doula. I wish that was possible for financial reasons, for cultural reasons, all these different things. People don't always have that, or just sheer fact, what we're just slowly still coming out of pandemic, where it was not safe to have another person in your home. And so I see this as collaborative space to some of those traditional practices of having, postpartum doula family and things in your area, where you can get these quick and easy access to these things. But we're not trying to provide medical advice. We want to drive people to reach out to their wide network of support teams. That is your OB, your midwife, your acupuncturist, all these different things that have evidence-based, interventions. Like, I feel like folks don't often think or drive their, I would say doctors don't always drive their patients to seek out acupuncture or even Reiki, or all these things that we know are proven to have impact in these spaces, especially for someone who has just given birth. Like, you got to be looking at your full toolkit of things. And so I see our platform as being able to bring answers that have scientific basis to other folks of things that just aren't showing up on Dr. Google, WebMD, and things like that. And being able to question how you can be having a more holistic support. And once again, being in a digital space, that it is being able to increase access. And our hope is to also keep it at an affordable cost too. And by it not being having a physical person directly, I think that we'll be able to continue to do that and have an algorithm that hopefully is also reaching multiple different geographies, that it will be giving answers that are from all of these different backgrounds. Is certainly intentionality too. So that is how I'm trying to maintain some of that equitability and access in our product.
I love that. And you're not trying, you're doing. So
Thank you.
Kudos to you on that. I really, when you talk about making sure that it remains affordable, I would also challenge you in saying that in corporate spaces, employee resource groups or affinity groups, et cetera, are recognizing that there are differences in healthcare access and or differences amongst our communities. So maybe it's a tool that you also market to companies that specifically need to address certain segments of their workforce population. So corporate sponsorship would be my suggestion to you, but take that with a grain of salt. Okay, I also would like to ask that question. Heather, do you have some thoughts on that, addressing barriers through your work and ensuring that women receive the support that they need?
Absolutely. Like what I talked earlier about wanting to give people options to pay with something other than finances, we're giving people the power for their story to become their currency. And I believe that in this day and age, the one thing that I will say is that if my company were to become like really, really successful and I got the wealth of a person like Jeff Bezos, all of that would be invested back into the company, because I believe that there is no such thing as an ethical billionaire. But a company can be worth that if the employees and the community are the beneficiaries. So I'm working to build a system where the community comes first. So people are able to use whatever they have as currency, and then they can also make money off of it. Like I see a lot of people who are giving away content for free on Instagram by saying, I use this product and I love it. I want to work towards people being able to use their voice as their currency, and to create a world where we don't I want there to be a world in 10 to 15 years where if you go to a store, a person asks, how do you want to pay? And there's an option to basically pay with your story or to pay with something other than financial.
So like a barter, are you talking about some type of bartering system? Or I guess there would be, I don't know, maybe like some digital coins or something built up I don't know. How does that translate?
I would have them basically, let's say you went to Starbucks and ordered a coffee and you paid with a review or marketing collateral. You would have a deposit that would go on your credit card, and you'd have 48 hours to basically record what you want to record or something like that, maybe. So we're giving them options to pay for things through their marketing collateral. And then once we have our ROI, they can make dividends off of that collateral.
Okay, that's really interesting. Especially, if you've noticed, a lot of the major corporations or people in general are also looking more to the micro influencers. They want to feel like there's more of a connection and not just, oh, buy this cream because I said so and I have 1 million followers and they got a nice commission. So I'm going to move on to the next question. And I would like for Allison to take a stab at this. So what emerging trends in technology and wellness do you foresee as being most transformative for women's health? And how are your platforms preparing for these changes?
Yeah, so I would say, similar to Kendall's point, that almost everyone has a cell phone and there's different apps for everything. And now as the proliferation of wearables becomes prevalent, I think that is really going to enable women to take charge of their health. You're tracking everything from your steps, your weight, your heart rate, your cholesterol. And now, blood sugar has become a big thing to track. I really see that wearables and tracking your health in that way is really going to empower women to be able to take control of their health and understand what they might need to do to improve it. And so through the work that I'm doing, I'm trying to just build that awareness, right? It's like take charge of your own health, whether that's through AI, creating your own meal plans, creating your own workouts based on you. That's the beauty of it, is when you give those great parameters, it gives you that customized information. So I think we're at this great tipping point where women could really take charge of their own personal health.
Yeah, I love that. And the fact that, we wear so many hats, right? And we're taking care of everybody else. And sometimes we fall through the cracks, right? So to have these reminders, these pushes, dinging and saying, hey, the UV index is really high today. You need to put on some SPF, even if you're a melanated woman, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I love that. So, Dr. LaTanya, why don't you talk to us a little bit more about frequency?
Okay, sure. We in the spiritual community, we talk about things like crystals, tuning forks, sound bowls, all of the things, right? But one of the ways I would want to answer both questions is that This is like the med bed in your own hand and in your own family. So if you can't afford to get to a doctor right away, which is the truth for many entrepreneurs and creatives, and particularly people who, especially entrepreneurs, you can access this as a user at an affordable price, right? But to be or donation or whatever, it allows you to, the technology meets you where you are. So even for me as a coach who over the years where my practice has evolved, I don't want to always coach pain, right? I want to pair the the program that you're doing specifically with what your body is telling you that it needs, or what your spirit is telling you that it needs. A person can come in and just be a user and receive a reading, is what we call it, to see where you are, because we're not diagnosing. But you also can invest in this. This can be a business. This can be something that you pair with what you're offering as a health professional, or just to your family, because it works for your body. So like when I get out of a session, I'm able to take care of myself. Sometimes I don't always want to meditate, but this is designed custom to hear the sound. When we go to Sound Bowl, and I do love Sound Bowl, I love everything in person, it's general. But when you go to experience this frequency, it is your soundtrack. It is giving you the soundtrack that you need to adjust your energy so that your body becomes an adaptogen. Your body begins to heal itself. Your mind begins to heal itself. So you can do this for for yourself, your family, your pets. You can do this when you enter into a room and you're bringing Reiki energy, sound bowl healing. You're bringing because all of us are broadcasting centers. And whether we know it or not, particularly if we're empaths and we're absorbing people's energy, or listen, turn on the television, and we're having so much polarization happening in the culture right now. You can listen, put these frequencies on, and go right into your own bones. You are recalibrating yourself now, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to get down on the floor. You don't have to change. You don't have to tote equipment. You can download this as a soundtrack to tune in to your own frequency that you need, and keep tweaking and adjusting it, coupled with doing the inner work, coupled with community, and also staying the course to come back with supplementation, working with your naturopath or your doctor. There are plenty functional medicine and integrative medicine doctors and centers that embrace all of it. So it's not just me. You have the harmonic egg. That's another one that you go sit in and receive the light therapy and the readings. And pretty soon we are going to have med bed technology where this is not strange. So it's helpful for those who are the first teachers of our children, mothers, to know that you can be in front of the health and not behind it.
I love that, being in front of the health and not behind it. That's a very empowered stance. So thank you for sharing that. Elena, do you have any thoughts on emerging trends in technology and wellness?
Sure. I mean, it's pretty much what Allison was saying. You know, I think we're at the stage now where it's like, you know, everyone has access to a phone, and with all the apps that are available, we can definitely, you know, kind of keep on track with, you know, what's important to us in terms of health. But I also do want to advocate, you know, for communities that, you know, when we think about lower income communities, you know, the accessibility to simple things like internet, right? We don't think about that. And that was definitely, you know, a huge point when COVID happened, right? And everything had to go online, and kids had to, you know, go to school, and everything was, you know, internet. And that was definitely a huge issue, especially like, you know, in parts of Los Angeles where just simple basic things like internet wasn't accessible, right? So now it's like we're talking about technology, but also we need to be mindful of being able to just even provide like the basics to these, you know, communities. And And with respect to that, too, health and wellness, I mean, just even food. So I'm working right now on initiative with communities in LA where it's fractured communities. And I mean, we're talking about issues, again, of just providing just, healthy food. And at 2025, I feel like this shouldn't be a discussion. But unfortunately, it is. I think one of the main grocery stores out here, it was called like the 99-cent store. And so they went out of business. And that hugely impacted those communities. But we don't think about it because there's like a plethora of grocery stores. But, it's like, well, what means to, each community? And I think we definitely need to factor that in.
Plus one on that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your passion project? Not tech-based, but hey, share it.
Why not? Well, so speaking of which, we're in a society, again, where we're just inundated with a lot of processed foods. And I think that is slowly coming up being an issue. And so my mission is creating healthy food bowls, gourmet food bowls, Southeast Asian, and having that type of cuisine accessible to majority. So kind of think of, your Chipotle, Cava. So mine is, kind of in that food genre, but just Southeast Asian. And so the big mission to that is actually to create revenue, provided it goes well, and it will. But my goal would be to create this food company with like nonprofit foundation basis where, I would use a portion of like the revenue to support women in lower income communities and to support them with their education in neuroscience.
Great. Thanks for sharing, Elena. That's how we connected. So appreciate it. Okay, so the next question, how do you see emerging technologies breaking down traditional barriers to access and quality care for women across diverse socioeconomic backgrounds? I think we kind of just touched on that, but I will open it up for Kendall as we begin to round out our conversation. Do you have thoughts on this, Kendall?
For sure. So I think, some of these tools around AI and things are going to be able to bring some of those aspects of personalized health that we all kind of touched on more directly to different populations and different folks of socioeconomic backgrounds. And there's also like the idea around having those wearables and things like that, just the empowerment of folks to be able to ask more intentional questions and ask more of their providers. I think it's being able to the democratization of health data essentially was I see some of those technologies being, and that's powerful information to be able to, especially with your story, DMB, and being able to advocate for yourself and be like, hey, this like doesn't feel right. And like, also here's some more data why this doesn't feel right, and being able to have access to that. I feel like traditionally, your doctor was the beholder of all health information, and that's really paradigms being shifted. And so I see all of these different technologies as being able to help just continue to push the needle that way.
Absolutely. So this is our final discussion point as we round out this conversation. And I think we gathered well today. In what ways can AI and digital health innovations enhance personalized care and early preventative strategies? So I think that that's really important, and we've touched on it. I'm going to open it up to Allison, and then Dr. Vicky, you can bring us home.
Yeah, happy to jump in. So as I mentioned before, I think AI and digital health really being able to kind of empower yourself to look at what you need. Maybe it's lowering your cholesterol, getting more steps, getting more water, but really taking advantage of the AI and personalizing your healthcare, using apps, using wearables. But most importantly, like I said, being progressive about it, right? And I think Dr. LaTanya said it perfectly, being in front of it versus being behind it. So use that AI and that technology to really kind of get ahead of your health.
Thanks so much for sharing. And Dr. Vicky, why don't you close us out?
I would love to. I I would say that there are three C's that come to mind as I'm sitting here. I think the power of today is how we've connected. As you said, we've gathered well. But I think it's also an invitation to collaborate, where um, we're cross connecting, if you will, with our passion projects, with the technologies that we're using. I know Dr. Latanya and we're going to be doing some things together, and through those collaborative connections, we are creating community. I'm very, very committed to serving women who have limited and or restricted access, right? Because the truth is, there are more women who are disconnected, who are disenfranchised. And that's the work I've been doing, over the last 20, 30 years. So I am excited about the opportunity and the invitation to continue connecting, collaborating. Thank you so much, Niambi, for bringing us all together today. This is an example, a demonstration of a model that will work, in spite of all of the other barriers that women are encountering, with access to care. And with community, we're going to come out and continue serving women and keeping us well so that we can continue to gather well.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for GatherVerse Women's Health Summit Day 2. This was a phenomenal roundtable. I personally like to thank Christopher for this opportunity to pull these powerful women together and to share their passion projects, to share their past performance, and to share their future work in the digital space. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We look forward to staying in touch. Take care, everyone.
What an incredible roundtable that we just were privy to. What an exciting exploration towards more of what we don't know. This has been a persistent theme of GatherVerse Women's Health Summit Week. We thank you for the leaders that we just heard from. We hope that you'll take time to follow each of their journeys. I'm sure they'll happy to be connected with each of you. But now it brings us to our first fireside of GatherVerse Women's Health Summit Day 2. We're calling to the stage Caitlin Krause, an expert on many things, XR, AI exploration, well-being, has educated at many different prestigious institutions and organizations around the world. We're happy to have her join us right now.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's so good to be here. And I have to say, I was inspired by the women leaders that we just heard from. And, it's step by step. It's those little practices that can have huge exponential impact and people connecting with their hearts here. So I'm already moved, honored to be part of this, and excited to share in a fireside with you.
We're so happy to have you here with us, Caitlin.
Thank you.
I've had the pleasure of being able to witness and experience how quite capable you are in these very accelerated and incredible times of innovation, and did just do such incredible stalwart work in keeping well-being at the center of innovation. You're one of the very finest in business to be able to do it, and so we're happy to be able to convene with you now. Audience, Caitlin has done many things across the trajectory of her career, and including deploying several different novels, several different books for us to enjoy, to have a better sense of understanding of emerging technologies intersected with wellness and well-being. Before we get into this incredible book that you've written, that you've shared, what has set you on this path? And Has this path been fulfilling? And in what ways, I must ask, since it is an elephant in the room, has AI influenced this work that you have been engaged in for years now?
Yes, we contain layers. And I find myself, I'm also at a health summit right now, physically. And I was thinking a little bit about this each morning because I do get up and I have a phrase that a friend shared with me, meditate before caffeinate. so I got up and I was thinking, okay, how, there's no chance. Sometimes you look at your life like a map. And for me, it's been different puzzle pieces that are fueled by curiosity. And then now, Chris, I look at the map and kind of pull out and I see that every nuance seems to fit together in a way that I couldn't see when I was walking the walk. I was following intuition. And so my history that some people might not know is I have over a decade of full-time teaching as a middle school teacher and a high school teacher in the classroom. And part of my path that led toward well-being was realizing that my own life as a learner felt a little bit restricted in the walls of a classroom. I don't know. I love learning, and a lot of people love to go to school. And I think sometimes growing up, it felt restrictive that each topic was separated and segmented, in competition to achieve, but to what end? Why are you doing it in the first place? So when I became a teacher, I decided I wanted to reform education and open up this idea of storytelling. Like, just say to each student as they walk in, welcome, I see you. What's your story? Tell me more. And I think growing up, I moved around a lot. So I always had to shift. Parents in the Foreign Service, stationed in different places, and you realize there were different languages, different cultures around you, and you could either get curious or kind of fall into fear. And so I had a lot of background feeling that friction, that life friction. Is there audio feedback for you? We're good?
Yeah, a little
Okay.
bit. I don't know what that is. That's interesting. Keep going.
Yeah. So I take time with this question because I think there's a humanity underneath everything that I'm doing. I've been studying technology, programming. I was a coder out of university and made that lateral switch into education. It's all connected. It's all connected right now to humanity and to how each of us is not just a cog in a system. Even me looking at education, it's like changing from this mindset of workplace as a factory into workplace as experience culture. So well-being to me seemed foundational, but not something I needed to study as a separate topic. It was something I needed to integrate. And the more I worked on that practice of how do we get in the most creative mindset, how do we feed our own flourishing and feel like we really show up, I realized adults are like kids in bigger bodies. Like we all want to grow, we all want to learn,
Right.
and feel like we come alive. So that's the fast forward to now. When I founded my company Mindwise, I was thinking, how can I unlock that imagination for people who are in business or people who are in leadership? And then I didn't want to stop teaching. So I also teach at Stanford in the wellness department, a course called Digital Wellbeing, where I take all of these digital practices and look to couple them with the thriving, with how we actually not just perform, but how we show up and live and really access our source of energy. Everything that the people were talking about on the last panel, I mean, it's elemental and we can't do it alone. So, this is a system.
Let me ask you, Kayla, on the heels of that, we talk about empowering connection.
Mm-hmm.
Audience, what does empowering connection mean for you? Those that are with us at GatherVerse.live and the various social streams of where we find ourselves at today. We talk about empowering connection. We talk about human centricity, bringing things together. But you have this distinct capability, I've noticed, of being able to not only talk about connection as for face value, but we ask ourselves, what are we connecting to? And for what reason are we connecting? So here we have empowering connection with wonder and imagination in the age of AI. And it seems to me, Caitlin, and please give us what you have. It seems to me that we're heading prospectively into a creative renaissance, that we've reached this level where machines are so capable, not just agentics, but in reasoning and seeing and expression. And it's now causing humanity to take that next step forward, or that climb ascendant, to say, now that we've gotten into this stage, now it's time to reimagine again. What does that mean for you?
Wow. I love the way you phrase that. I want to savor it, because it amplifies hope plus action. And we need that right now, Chris. I'm telling this is our chance to fireside. So I like that you offer your views too. And, we're talking about a book that just came out, the subtitle. So I might as well just show the audience the cover. What you just read out loud is the subtitle of my book that came out, that has all of the practices about that elevated mindset. Like what can we not just do, but embody and feel, as we are a human primary source, biological, in what I see as a layer stack, kind of like nesting dolls, where you get to decide. You have the agency. You get to decide if you layer with certain AR, if you augment with certain biofeedback devices that are giving you more information. And you get to decide if you feel a little bit overwhelmed, because that's also in the book about dopamine and neurotransmitters, and how easy it is to start to feel a little bit addicted to, to the patterns. To, some people, side note, will feel like their workout doesn't count if they didn't have it logged into Strava, or some people are, deciding what to wear based on what an app says about the weather, and not about how their skin feels and their body feels. So a lot of this is both the minutia and the opportunity to think in new ways about, how can I elevate my experiences and animate my senses, and not feel like I disappear into the machine or become a robot. Now that we have AI, we don't need to perform, and we're not humans in the Turing test. I like to reverse it and say, how much do people sometimes seem like robots these days? Sure. as the robots are becoming more human. So there are a lot of nuances and layers. And the original proposal for the cover of this book was a robot arm and a human hand. And digital was going to be digital typeface, and well-being was going to be a soft font that was very swirly. And I said to the publisher, that's expected. Like that's what we would expect, because right now we might be still thinking binary, like, oh, it's digital computer meets human soul. And I see it as an integration. I knew that the cover does send a message, and I knew that it had to be about ways of seeing and looking, and a lot of different colors, and kind of this effect of maybe some type of fractal or some type of prism, where you see in new ways, and you start to discover that everything is conditional based on people's choice and their lifestyle. Like, I'll have people come to me and say, what are 10 steps to better digital well-being? And I can give tips, but I would end up saying, Chris, tell me more about your life. Tell me what matters to you, and I can tell you some tips and tools to animate that. But we're not a paint by number being. And if we are, then we might be just kind of fitting a mold that we think is the idea of success, or the idea of being enough, when what if we're already enough, and we just need to kind of back to your question about connection, what if internally we just need to take time for that inner space and that,
That's right.
yeah, that sense of being whole. And then when we bring something to somebody else, it's like a presence. We're just available then, I think, to show up as a community.
I like your approach. I think it's fundamentally sound when I hear about seamless integration.
Mm-hmm.
The audience that's with us, for many people that have studied, I think that are multidisciplinary in technology and, let's say, back to first principles of design, if you will, looking at the extension of reality, knowing that part of extended reality, or what we would commonly refer to as XR, is to create an experience that's almost seamless. It's not being able to differentiate one from the other, but to be able to appreciate and examine it as a whole that's presented, let's say, with cognitive fidelity, and thinking about perceptual science and what that means in terms of our environmental fidelity, contextual fidelity, these experiences that we have. And I think when we get to this level of advancement that we're finding ourselves in today, that's quite capable AI models and quite capable new devices that are allowing us to real-time augmented projection and to be able to see spatial environments in ways we've never interacted and engaged with before. Caitlin, does this lead us to an opportunity to enable internally within creativity that's never been unlocked, and to the point of scalable creativity that we really haven't had the opportunity to see manifested or demonstrated through the ages because it's just not time yet? It's almost as if it's been incubating. I think about these things. Does that resonate?
It does. And I'd love to hear just a quick yes or no. Did you ever feel as if you were born too early or too late? Because sometimes I will share, I feel like we're born in the most awkward time to be human, because we can philosophically predict some of what you're saying. We're living into the answers, and 50 years from now, it's going to be different. I have hope that events like this, people having forums to come together, it's a lot of opportunity right now. And, we've been living in an age where we're hunching over cell phones and where people are having back problems because they work on 2D computers, but we're 3D spatial creatures. So everything you're saying about unlocking creativity, I'm thinking about some of what was on the panel before, and the neurodiversity and the ways that we can express ourselves that are not just audio language. What we're learning about our own sense and sensibility. Yeah, and it's different, right? What drew us to XR, I think, is a very special quality where I find people working in this industry are often a little bit ahead in terms of future forward mindset. And I have this headset behind me. If an audience just sees this, they might think, oh, it's something that is dividing, but they're not seeing what's inside the world. So when you open up and you experience something firsthand, you might be embodied in an avatar, and then you have a question, who am I? Like, not just why am I here and what's my purpose, but, this is my human physical shell. And then there I have a different way of expressing myself, and both can be true. But to your point right now, I'm thinking about attention and linking the attention with intention. And when I'm there and I'm fully present, I'm not dividing myself in between worlds. I'm uniform, so I don't know if that, I just think it's a really interesting quality for people to think about with well-being. Where do we place our attention as our creativity is going to skyrocket and we have so many ways to express ourselves? let's say everybody has an AI agent in the next 5 years that's expressing itself with animation. Who's listening? How do we cultivate the quality of slow connection and listening? And there's a little bit of background noise. So it's going to take me 10 seconds.
You're good. Take your time, Caitlin.
Closing the door. Yeah. Does that make sense, though? That's what I think about with attention practices.
I think it makes a lot of sense, with consideration to if I'm looking at this present state that we find ourselves in, and subsequent future state, of these emerging technologies and the way that they intersect. We think about, yesterday we're talking about spatial computing. Tomorrow we're talking about, or tonight we're talking about spatial intelligence. Thinking about these environments that represent us, if you will, and talking about the extension of the avatar. But at the same time, per your expression of when you are in an immersive state, you're really trajectorying yourself into this other animated thing and entity, and it's walking around in a virtual environment. And you've done this more times than most people who walk the face of this earth. I know this to be true, especially I think you are probably one of the very few people that I know of many that have been afforded the opportunity to centralize community and digital well-being in digital environments, in community centricity. That's why this book that you've written, and this isn't Audience, by the way, her only book. She's written several. But this particular book, when we talk about digital well-being, I think it's more important now than ever. And I think it speaks to, I think, a vision state of saying years ago that you've been on this path because, and I ask, why did you take this particular path when everybody's going, let's say, left and innovating product and hardware and machines and HMDs and glass and software? Mm-hmm. You've decided to take more of the, I would say, the humane intercept, which is so big what GatherVerse represents. As you know, you spoke at our very first GatherVerse Summit.
Did.
And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, you did the very first GatherVerse roundtable we ever had, and you officiated that. Audience, that's something for remembrance. The very first voice of GatherVerse has ever spoken was Caitlin.
Log on the campfire. Yes.
I completely did. That just came to mind, Caitlin.
No, I know. We're alike. I think that we're walking the walk, and it's good for me to take time and say, this is your life. This is where you've been, because I love experience design for people who are just getting to know me. Chris is definitely pointing out, I have a question sometimes I'll ask people in sessions, what makes you come alive? Like, what makes you feel like you leave getting more energy than you had when you came in? And I've tried to design my life around that. And a lot of my books have a design influence underneath where we're each life designers. That's what inspired this book. And when I design experiences in virtual reality for other people or augmented, I understand I hold the space. I have to establish trust. I'm playing the mentor in a hero's journey. And I see that crossing the threshold, it starts before you even interact with any device. So I love new hardware and I love following the trends. And every time there's an explosion in one direction where people are saying, let's all focus on this, I think it's great to look in the other direction and say, well, what's happening on the back end? And also, what do people need to be able to build something meaningful with these new systems and devices that are always changing? So again, this friction of well-being, how many people feel like they're lonely and on their own as leaders? They want to keep up with everything, but they don't have the guidance and support. So I love being the onboarder, the person who shows whether it's 3D objects and using them for storytelling, or people on teams who learn that these digital worlds can be great places to play and experiment and get creative. yeah, this is what makes me come alive. And so I've followed that path as somebody who's an ambivert. I'm both an introvert and an extrovert. I'm a poet, so I involve a lot of poetry and the quiet force in what I'm doing. This fireside is like a meta. Again, how do you peel back the layers of who you are? But I've put a lot of that into the book, because sometimes people will have experiences with me and they'll say, tell me more about what went into this, or what background research you're using as some of the principles, because there's a lot of science underneath what I'm doing, and a lot of research that led to experience design that prioritizes well-being. And I thought, I want to teach other people so that they can do that and design it for their teams. So, even just flipping to this page, benefits of spatial computing for well-being, with a whole framework of how people would incorporate a topic like wonder, so that your body and mind kind of open up to possibility, and you're not in a fixed mindset, but you're in a more open state.
A couple questions to follow up, and then our time is quick as this comes, quick as it goes.
No. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love this.
Under the subject of women's health,
yeah,
let's lean in.
Okay.
Your book is good for anyone that wants to imbibe. But under the banner of women's health, let's say in the spirit of this discussion, this summit, what is the benefit gain? And from your lens, only they will ultimately know when they read your book, your authorship. What is the benefit for women that are listening here at GatherVerse.live on this subject of women's health, as it's just been incredibly impactful these 2 days? Why do they pick up your book? Why do they contact you? What is the value for them?
Gosh, there's so many ways to answer this question. And what comes up for me is that I identify as a woman, and women are sometimes underrepresented in leadership, in creative fields, in all kinds of applications. I think just the coupling of securing your own safety belt first, and also taking these daring risks, for me to fuse a topic of leadership and tech with creativity, it's thinking in new ways. And I think that without separating genders, but really women are problem solvers, they're supporters, they're builders. And I see this in all different aspects of this book, is also an encouragement of dignity and that physical sensibility, that I talk about somatics, which means where we feel things in our bodies. And, something simple, that usually the form factor of tech devices or anything might not fit a female body. I had trouble with controllers for the first, I don't know if anyone else wants to put that in the chat, but they weren't made to fit my hands or my form. And I was thinking, okay, I'm not the typical user. But now I see it as this whole new world that's opening up, where we don't have to think about fitting into boxes anymore. It's freedom of expression. I'm looking at the culture cornerstones on page 44. In this book, there's a framework underneath that starts with dignity. It says our basic human right is dignity. How do we all have dignity individually and collectively?
Sure.
It leads in a system to better freedom, where if you have embodiment that starts with dignity, and I see you at your human level, then we have freedom to be really creative. That freedom leads to invention, where, particularly women, more women have a voice then at the table and say, hey, I have all these great ideas. I want to express myself. I have other people who are supporting me in mentorship and sponsorship. A lot of this has to do with equity and funding. And then that invention, if it's just air or this idea and it doesn't have a container, that's where the fourth part of the culture cornerstone that I want to help to build is agency. Like, how do now, and this book actually helps with that. It has chapters about future tech, how not to leave out well-being from the KPIs of how business evaluates success, and how does that agency, I call it embodied action from invention. You have great ideas, let's put them into practice.
Sure.
Let's start something that's deeper than a prototype or an experiment, and women can't do it. I don't see it as a separation. I see it as a fusion where there are allies, there are men involved, there are people that see themselves as human. And that's why when I show up to a panel, and if it's me as the only woman on the panel and they say, "You're the woman on the panel," I say, "Yes, and like I'm that, and I'm also technologist, I'm also poet, I'm also writer, I'm also athlete," so that we get to contain multitudes, which is also what this book is about, what it means to be human and understand that you can be both a scientist and an artist. And if you've ever started working in a field where you feel like you're a futurist and things are, aspirational, but the world isn't quite there yet, the crazy ideas of today are going to be the reality of tomorrow. So I want to encourage everybody to indulge those crazy ideas and see that you're not alone.
With the final minute that we have here, Caitlin,
Sure.
we're so thankful to be able to have you here with us for this extended fireside. And before we lead to a next incredible fireside with Cheryl Strzelka, excuse me, Cheryl. Wonder.
Yeah.
I hear this word. I've heard you use this word so many times, but I've never asked you, from your lens of defining and the embodiment of your work, if you will, what is wonder?
Wonder is an emotion, and I smile because I love it. It's people are studying it more, Chris, because it fires in our brain and our body, and there's all kinds of research showing that it resonates on the opposite end to anger on an emotional spectrum. It's openness, it's possibility, it's detachment, tends to be detachment from a fixed identity or a fixed mindset. It's very evident in children, but it doesn't have to be childish. People who are very creative tend to have practices in wonder, whether it's, this is in the book, but there are so many practices where you can do very simple things each day to animate wonder, which is linked to a sense of awe. They're slightly different, but wonder and awe throughout history have been what people use when they're practicing something together in a ritual. And I think humans miss rituals. Like, even since the pandemic, we're coming back to what that means to gather together meaningfully and soulfully trust each other. And I have levels of wonder, because it can mean, why is the sky blue? I wonder about that. But it can be a deeper level of wonder, like when an astronaut looks at planet Earth and starts to see that all of the borders between countries are something that we designated as humans, and there's a natural kind of global oneness. And over people have talked about this effect that leads you into a better collectivism, a better mindset toward possibility and hope. So wonder can be an amazing conduit, and sometimes people, I believe everybody has it inside of us. We sometimes don't know how to access it, but we know when we get goosebumps. There's a whole chapter about music and wonder, because music can be a great conduit to feeling it. And the flip side is we need safety. It's hard to be in a state of wonder if you don't have your basic needs met. So that's why I'm a champion for well-being, because I think if we can give people more ways to have their basic needs met, then we can celebrate wonder and awe. And if I could add one more thing, it's that my theme this year, and I have themes that kind of guide my life, but one of them is beauty. How often do we think about not necessarily things being pretty or aesthetically beautiful, but what is a moral quality of beauty that we can recognize in other humans, because that can bring us a sense of wonder. So if everyone thinks about a person in your life that you admire, a person who you aspire to be like and you love to spend time with, that to me, it's been shown to be one of the most powerful forms of wonder and awe, like finding that wonder in another person, that moral beauty that lifts us up and gives us hope, and we need more of that. So thank you. And I do have a course coming up that associates with this book. It's a 5-week course with me. So if you're curious about the practices and you want to take part, I can put the link in the chat to find out more, and I'll get in touch.
GatherVerse community, take time, if you will, the journey with Caitlin to follow her work, that she may follow yours, and together to be able to explore new foundings that hopefully will lead to wonder. Caitlin, thank you so much for taking time to sojourn with us here today. Our gather was well.
Our gather was very well, and I got that uplift when you were coming to join me here for this fireside, Chris, because you named it. We go way back. We're walking the walk, and it means a lot to gather together with others. So thank you to you and your team for all you're doing and who you are.
We certainly are thankful, and I'm so thankful and grateful for the friendship that we've been able to carry over the years. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, everybody.
And coming up next, we have a very special fireside coming up with Russell Bundy and Cheryl Strzelka. There's much to unravel and unpack here for our final fireside of GatherVerse Women's Health Summit. There's much to be explored and shared. For all of you that are still with us at GatherVerse.live, which you clearly are, and streaming from ways we don't even know that you're even watching, from your home, from your living room, perhaps with a neighbor or with a friend, prepare for more. There's a lot more to share, but we only have a little bit of time to do it. May our gather be well.
Hello and welcome to day 2 of the GatherVerse Women Health Summit. I almost messed it up there. My name's Russell Bundy, and I'm going to be the moderator today. And what a superb chat with Caitlin and Christopher on that previous fireside chat. It was absolutely amazing, in-depth discussion. Like, I learned so much. But we're here with our fireside chat right now with the one and only amazing Cheryl. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Russell.
Could you please introduce yourself to everybody and also tell us what made you want to come to the Women Health Summit today?
Oh, I'm happy to. So my name is Cheryl Strzelka. I come from an HR background. So my bread and butter right now is in the HR field, supporting a lovely organization. But I am here today representing my consulting group, Ugly Duckling Consulting. We do HR consulting for small organizations who either haven't had the function yet or are looking to grow and elevate their function. We also do some workshop facilitation. And so just a little new venture that I'm dabbling in is sort of
okay.
Yeah. And so Chris and I spoke this week about coming on and sort of announcing that new venture, and I wanted to be part of this because I think now, today, especially given the political climate and everything that's happening in the world, I think it's so important that we're celebrating women specifically as a group, and I think it's great that you have a whole summit dedicated to us, so thank you guys for that.
Absolutely. It's been such an interesting 2 days. I have learned so much, and it's very interesting all the different aspects which there is to learn from. There's just so much to take in. But obviously, kind of coming back to yourself, Cheryl, which is, when it comes to the title of the fireside chat, which is, I am here, I am enough, and I am ready. What does that mean to you? Like when you read that sort of title, does that incorporate self-confidence, strength? Like what does it mean to you?
I'm excited that you asked. So this is actually a teaser. I am here, I am enough, I am ready. Here, enough, and ready is an acronym. The acronym is HER. And this essentially is the framework for a book that my writing partner and I are putting together. And so I'm happy to kind of dive into that a bit, but that was the reason for the title of this talk.
Okay.
So it's exciting. Some exciting work we're doing.
Yeah, no, please, let's dive into the book. I mean, I want to hear more about it. Like, just tell us, like, give us an overview of, like, what the book's about, and also potentially what inspired you to do that as well.
Okay, I'm excited. So the book is right now 2 parts. The first part is a collection of stories. We've been conducting interviews with women, people having lived experiences as women in our circles, and have recently expanded the circle. The network is huge for the content for interviews. But essentially, we've been learning about women's lives and stories, and the decisions that they've made, and the choices that they've made, and often the sacrifices that they've made in their lives to be able to have something. So one part of the book is celebrating and honoring those stories. We think that those stories will help other women either through a tough situation, or maybe they've lived something similar and they can find some sort of partnership and kinship in sharing that story. And then the second piece of the book is the framework. It's the I am here, I am enough, I am ready. And it's helping guide women to live a more authentic version of their own life. So I'll tell you where this sort of came from.
Yes, please.
There was one point in my life where I thought I wanted to write this book, but recently I turned 41 last year, and I have a almost 5-year-old daughter, and I've been doing a lot of reflecting on the decisions that I've made, and thought, as a woman in society, it's you get a lot of choices, hopefully, right? You get to make the decision to have a child or not. You get to choose to be in the workforce, or you choose your home as your main job, or maybe you get to choose your partner, and you make those choices every day. You continue to make that choice every day. You choose your children, you choose your partner, you choose your career, or whatever version of that you prioritize, and through that you almost either forget or consciously decide not to choose yourself. And so much of our identity, so much of our identity as women is wrapped up in our career. But what happens if you get laid off, or wrapped up in your partnership that you've built? And what happens if for some reason you decide not to stay together, or your children go off to college, and then you look back in your life and you think, who do I even like anymore? What do I even do for fun? So I had this moment where I was like, women need, I think we all, I'm going through this journey myself, we all need a way to figure out who we are and what makes us happy. So that's what this book does. That's the long version. Sorry.
No, please. It's, first of all, thank you for sharing everything, because from my point of view, it gives more in-depth context to why you created the book, what the book's about. And one of the things that kind of I was thinking of as you was speaking within all that, when you're saying about it's a collaboration of women sharing all their experiences together, and then you're talking about your own sort of personal experience and your journey as you was following suit. I'm curious, when you were speaking and doing the research, when you're speaking to various women within the book, was there any particular sort of 1 or 2 unique stories that just like hit home and you're like, yeah, I can connect to that? Like,
there was an aspect of every story that resonated with me, and I thought, I've felt that before, or I've been in that situation before. What I can say, the common thread throughout all of the interviews was, there was a moment where throughout conversations, I'll ask, do you feel satisfied with the life that you've chosen for yourself? And
Ooh.
for the most part, the answer, I mean, almost always, the answer was yes, but. And so what I'm
Ah.
finding, yeah, is that women we're so proud of the lives that we've built, and
Mhm.
we don't live with a lot of regret. So nobody looks back and says, I wish I didn't have a child, or I wish I wasn't this, in this role in this company. But they do say, where did the rest of me go in all of that? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think we all have those sort of thoughts of like, what if I did this, or what if I did that, or but if I moved this direction, would my life be different? X, Y, and Z. And I think we all have those sort of like thoughts of I mean, even sometimes myself, I will sit there and go, what if I actually made a different choice? Like, would I be in a different place now? Or
I think it's
um
inevitable that you would be. And I think what we ask women to do, that's the I am here portion of the framework, is we ask
okay.
women to take an honest inventory of their life today. There, you
Yeah.
find that when you think about, if you're doing an assessment of what your circumstances, some people are a little bit, maybe they exaggerate or they conflate their situation. Maybe they live beyond their means because they're not being realistic about what they have, or maybe they underestimate their skills or their background. But the I am here portion of the framework requires women to say, like, this is what I've built for myself. These are my circumstances. This is my network. These are my resources. These are the skills that I've acquired. This is what I would need to get to the next phase, or do the next thing that would make me happy. And so that's the first part. And we're not looking back anymore. We're not saying, I wish I would have. We're saying,
Yeah.
what can I do now with what I have at my disposal?
Like
So
like
I'm
like
glad you
like
brought that up.
like what's the action plan? Like, what is the next stage? Like, how can I move forward? So okay, so we've covered I am here, right? I'm here right now. This is my circumstances. This is what I got and stuff.
Mhm.
Where does the I am enough play into this? Because is that kind of like reassuring yourself, like, yeah, I am good enough, and I am here right now, and I am enough, as in, like, I can do things. So is that kind of like what it is, or tell
That's
me more
almost
about that?
exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. This came to me. I was doing a somatic therapy session, and the therapist coaching me through these breathing exercises asked me to say the chant, the mantra, I am enough. And saying it out loud just brought tears to me, because I
Ah.
think just acknowledging that there's no version of yourself that's better. No matter what anybody else needs or wants from
Mhm.
you, no matter what dreams you have for yourself, that today, everything you have at your disposal and everything you've learned up to this point has qualified you to be able to do the next thing. And so
That
I
is
think
true.
just saying out loud, I'm enough the way that I am today, and that
Exactly.
is enough. I think
Yeah.
that helps often. So that's why it's the second step. So you're assessing your situation and your world, and you're saying, this is my reality. And then you're saying, okay, now who I am today is ready to take that next step already. That's like the enough to the ready piece. Yeah.
So the I am ready piece is, that's like the next steps, as in, right
Yeah.
now I'm gonna take action, and this is what I'm gonna do to move forward, as in, I am here, I am enough right now. Got the confidence and
Yeah.
everything, and I am ready to take my next step into my life, as in, you know, I want to pursue, I don't know, my career, or I want to pursue having a child, or whatever it may be, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's acknowledging that you have to give yourself permission. You don't have to wait for anybody to be okay with you doing
Mm.
the thing you've been waiting to do or wanting
Hmm.
to do. And so once you've acknowledged that you are enough to do that thing, all you have to do is take that step and
Exactly.
remind yourself that you don't need anybody else. You don't need validation from anywhere else. You're ready, just go. Just do it. Just saying the words out loud, I am ready, you start to believe it, and then you just start doing it. And it doesn't have to be the big action. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It can be a small step. And then every day, it's a small step to whatever that thing is for you. And I'll tell you too, Russell, it's not always a major life change in general. Sometimes we just have to give ourselves permission to do something that we love, or something that gives us peace. Sometimes it's as simple as, I'm feeling under the weather this week, or I'm feeling drained, and I don't have the bandwidth to go do the commitment that I agreed to. And I'm going to give myself permission to rest. And so then you're just becoming closer to the version of yourself that you really are, instead of disingenuously going because you committed to the thing. So I don't know if that's something that you can identify with, but that's something that women go through a lot.
There's a lot of times where I've sometimes haven't had a good night's sleep maybe, or something along those lines, or just feeling like really ill, and I'm just like, God, I don't want to go to this meeting, but I'm just like, sometimes I'm just like, I have to, like how you're saying, right? Sometimes you just feel obliged to, right? Because you kind of agreed that. And
well, and think about this too. What I notice in a lot of my interviews, and I'm really curious as to why. I'm a psych major, so to me, the why for what I'm about to say is the most important thing that I'm still trying to get to. But women in society, generally speaking, we will commit to something and we just do it because we feel bad. And the reason I think I'm sure there's a lot to it, but so much of what is celebrated about women are qualities that aren't that aren't traits that they have, but how they make other people feel. So if you compliment a woman, you're probably more likely to say, as a compliment, "You're so empathetic, you're so warm, you're such a good listener, you're so easy to talk to, you make people feel so good, you take care of all of us, like you're such a nurturer." And I don't know a lot of people that say those to men as compliments. They usually say it to women. And so we spend our whole lives feeling like it feels better when someone tells me I make them feel good. And you worry less about how you feel about yourself. And so when you've made that commitment, it may be easier for you to get out of it, because maybe you don't hold yourself to the standard of, I have to make them feel good about this. You may give yourself permission to say, well, I can miss this one, I'll be okay. Whereas a woman, we're like, I don't want to let them down, or I don't want to make them feel bad, or make them feel like I didn't want to be there. So I think that there's just we have this sort of weird, I don't know what it is. I don't know if society trains us to feel this way, or if a lot of us just feel this way innately, but that's a struggle we're fighting.
I want to throw you a curveball, which is, what is the hope that when women read this book, what is the hope that you want them to take away from the book after reading it, or even listening to this conversation right now? Like, is there anything specific that you hope women take away in general?
That you haven't chosen wrong ever. You haven't made any bad decisions for yourself. That today is the day you can start. Everything is forward from here on out, looking forward and making decisions looking forward. And you have all of it in you. I know it feels cliche, but all of it is there within you somewhere. The knowledge is there, the capabilities, everything that you would need to chase that thing, your dream, whatever it is, it's already in you. And so the book isn't meant to be, oh, I'm the authority and I'm going to tell you how to be happy. The book is more, I'm going on this journey also. Come on this journey with me, and let's learn together how we find our own version of happiness and get to make choices for ourselves. And if that means deprioritizing some of these other things, or just intentionally building time in our lives to take those small steps, then that's what that is. But yeah, that wasn't a curveball, Russell. Come on.
I mean, I thought it was. I thought it was a little bit, like kind of like a curveball. And I want to know a bit more, sort of personally, your side, which is, you're saying about why, right? Question everything. What is your why?
5 years ago, it might have been different. Today, it's my daughter. So for a few reasons, I tell this story often whenever I have a talk like this. When my daughter was 3, we were trying to decide what she was going to be for Halloween. And she said, I want to dress up as a doctor. I want to be a doctor for Halloween. And then she said, Mommy, can boys be doctors too? And when she asked that question, I was so proud that because, growing up, I'm an 80s child, and growing up And long before the 80s, there were certain professions that are attributed specifically to men, they had a male connotation. And so when she, in her mind, had only been around female doctors and knew female, it suddenly was just a doctor. It wasn't a female doctor anymore. So there was that piece. And then there's the other piece that she is my why. And she's the reason sort of I'm writing this book. It's to these generations also, is when I compliment her, I don't say, oh, you're so sweet, you're so kind, you're so helpful. I say, you're brave and you're strong and you're smart and you make good decisions and you choose yourself. And I realize that Gen Z and younger generations may not need our help. They're strong and smart and they've got it figured out and they're comfortable being selfish. But I think it's the women in their 30s and beyond and older that I think need this reminder. It's okay to choose yourself, and it's okay to not have to make everybody around you happy all the time. So that's a long why.
No, I mean, look, here's the thing. When it comes to why it's so important, right? It's crucial. It's kind of like what is your mission, right? As a personal individual, and what drives you every day. So the fact that you have that core foundation of your why is extremely important. And all of us have to have their own why. Like, why are we here today? Why are we even speaking and having this conversation? Why did we even make the book in the first place, right? And these are all different questions which you have to ask. And when you brought that up and you're saying about why, I was just like, yeah, that instantly makes me think, like, that's what I do. I'm like, why should I do this? Or why should I do that? And it makes you question things, not question things in a bad way. It's more of inquisitive, right?
Sure,
you want to know more. You want to learn more, which brings me to my final point, which is what do you want people to learn from your book? Like, I know you got I am here, I am enough, I'm ready, but is there any one point particularly within that book that you really want them to just learn that specific section? Maybe it is the framework, maybe it is one of the stories that was shared within the book. Is there anything in particular that you can think of?
I think that the feeling that you're not alone is always helpful. I'm trying to be as inclusive as possible when I'm collecting data within this book, because there's it's not, I think that as a white woman, I'm having a very different experience than women of color, specifically Black women or trans women. I think that their stories are so much more complex and complicated than even mine. And so as I'm going through my interviews, I'm making sure that I'm trying to capture their voices, because it's not my story to tell. I don't even dare to speak on behalf of folks who are having an experience that I'm not. But I think it's important to capture it and to represent it in some way, because I think as a white woman, it's my responsibility to be vocal and do some of that work and tell some of the story, because I think specifically women of color are tired of telling their own story and telling you why you should be supporting them. So within this book, we will capture a lot of voices and a lot of perspectives, and hope that it will resonate with somebody out there. And I think that it will.
Cheryl, I think time is almost up, but one last thing I want to say is, first of all, GatherVerse community, make sure you do follow Cheryl on her amazing journey and the book that she just wrote. And it's so insightful, supportive. There's so much to learn, the frameworks. Like, go and support Cheryl if you are watching and listening right now. And make sure you add her on LinkedIn. And also make sure you go and buy her book as well. I am here. I am enough. I am ready. Cheryl, thank you so much for joining us here at GatherVerse Women's Health Summit. It's a pleasure having you on the stage. I learned so much as well. And I appreciate you being here today. And as Christopher says as well, every woman matters. Every voice matters.
Thanks,
I'll finish with that.
I appreciate it. Have a great one.
Goodbye. Thank you, guys. Our Gather was well.
Kovacs, and I'm the founder of FemPower Health. And today we're going to talk about women's health and AI. So, the illusion of progress, artificial intelligence promises to revolutionize women's healthcare, offering better diagnostics, faster treatments, and more personalized care. But here's the reality: AI is learning from a broken system. So, if the data behind AI is incomplete or biased, it won't fix women's health. It will reinforce the very problems that we've been trying to solve. So, at its core, AI reflects and amplifies systemic bias. And for decades, women have been left out of research, misdiagnosed, and dismissed in medical settings. So, let's start with heart disease. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in women, yet AI models trained on male-centric data fail to recognize women's symptoms. And in fact, women are 50% more likely to be misdiagnosed after a heart attack and 50% more likely to die within a year. Now let's talk about bacterial vaginosis and machine learning. So bacterial vaginosis performs, or machine learning for bacterial vaginosis performs worse for Asian and Hispanic women, proving that AI is only as accurate as the biased data that it's fed. And then we talk about clinical trials. So women were not mandated to partake in clinical trials until 1993, thank you to Bernadette Healy, the first female head of the NIH. But even today, only 1/3 of studies analyze data by sex. So if AI isn't trained with diverse sex-specific data, it will scale these blind spots into the future. So the issue, again, it's not the AI itself, it's that the foundation of the data is fundamentally flawed. So now we have a hidden barrier: the reimbursement and financial incentives. So even the best technology won't change healthcare if the financial incentives remain broken. So let's take a look at hysterectomies. It is one of the most frequently performed surgeries in the United States, despite ACOG, which is the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, state that it should not be the default treatment. Yet insurance often makes it easier to get reimbursed for a surgery than for less invasive options like pelvic physical therapy or hormone therapy. So menopause care is another example. Only 30% of medical schools teach menopause, and the reimbursement models still don't support proper training or treatment. And even within hysterectomy procedures, reimbursement tends to not align with best medical practice. So for example, minimally invasive laparoscopic hysterectomy rates have dropped, not because they're not safer, but because reimbursement favors other approaches. So if AI is layered on top of this broken system, it won't drive better care. It will optimize what gets reimbursed, not what's best for patients. So let's take a real world example. So menopause is quite hot these days. I'm sure you've seen everything in the press about it. And we've seen what happens when bad data and poor policy shape women's healthcare. So let's backtrack to why we are where we are with menopause. In 2002, the Women's Health Initiative study misrepresented the risks of hormone therapy, sparking fear amongst doctors and patients. Now, it wasn't necessarily the data itself, it was how it was analyzed and all the repercussions after that because of the press going wild with this information. And so, as I mentioned before, medical schools stopped teaching menopause, and today only 30% of the med schools do include it in their curriculum. But as a result, doctors stopped prescribing hormone therapy even when it was the right treatment. So what happened as a result of this? Millions of women suffered from very preventable issues like osteoporosis, brain fog, and cardiovascular disease. And remember that being the number one cause of death in women? Not good. So a generation of women was left untreated, not because the care wasn't there, but because the system failed them. So now imagine AI being built on this flawed data, outdated research, and broken reimbursement policies. So if we don't fix these issues first, AI will reinforce decades of harm, not solve it. There's hope. So how can AI transform women's health? This isn't just about problems, because there's real hope if we really get this right. So now let's imagine a future where clinical trials, FDA approvals, medical guidelines, and reimbursement align seamlessly, where AI accelerates progress, not by scaling old biases, but by leveraging high-quality inclusive data to drive faster and more accurate decision making. And where conditions like endometriosis, which is something I also have, where women now wait 7 to 10 years for diagnosis, mine was 4, are identified in months, not a decade. And where the 17-year gap between clinical research and medical practice collapses into months, ensuring breakthrough discoveries that reach patients sooner. That's the future AI can help create, but only if we fix the foundation first. So if the data is incomplete, AI will scale those gaps. If reimbursement rewards outdated interventions, AI will optimize for the wrong things. And if clinical trials still exclude women or fail to analyze data by sex, AI will reinforce medical blind spots. So what's the call to action here? The good news is this isn't inevitable. We can fix it, but we must demand better data. AI models cannot be built on incomplete research. Sex-specific data and diverse clinical trials must be standard, not optional. And we must invest in women's health as an economic and public health priority, not just fertility and menopause, but Alzheimer's disease, autoimmune disease, cardiovascular health, and beyond. We must ensure AI-driven healthcare aligns with reimbursement and real-world clinical practice. If doctors cannot get reimbursed for treatments AI recommends, the system still fails. Technology, it is a tool, not a solution. The future of healthcare must be built with women in mind, because if we don't change course now, the next generation will face the same barriers, only harder to challenge. Thank you.
I'll leave you with a few tips, some indicators that you are or might be betraying your creative purpose. Here's a few scenarios. Number 1, you're focusing all kinds of energy and mind space on other people. Maybe you're thinking about the lives and relationships of other people or with other people, or helping people out a lot with their needs and projects and not doing your own, or also comparing yourself to them and deciding that you don't measure up. That's one sign that you might be betraying your creative purpose. Number 2, you're numbing out. You're binge watching Netflix, mindlessly scrolling for hours each day. Maybe sometimes during that time you're kind of dreaming about how you could be like the people or characters that you're engaging with or watching, but it's been months or years since you took any action towards those dreams for yourself. That's the second indicator. The last indicator that you might be betraying your creative purpose is you might start a project every once in a while, but after some initial energy burst, something always seems to get in the way. You might hear voices in your head saying that you don't have time anyway, or it's not worth your time with all the problems in the world. And you look back a few months later wondering why I did not complete or continue this process. So there's just some scenarios that could indicate that you're betraying your creative purpose. I am a coach, creativity empowerment, who helps women get back to their creative selves through my coaching and healing services, through my services called Grow Your Whole Voice. A little backstory about me is that even as a kid, I always wanted to create. I was constantly trying to create and express myself creatively. But what happened was I was hearing sort of voices and messages saying things like I was too weird, which I fully claim now, but then it kind of hurt. I was not talented enough. I was just doing things for attention. There was a larger cultural issue as well that kind of, I guess, devalues female voices sometimes and tells us we're selfish for kind of wanting to pursue our creative passions. So what I did for quite some time was that I gave up for a bit. Until I was about 33, I did not sing in public. Singing is my main form of creative expression. And at that point, though, what happened was I got some support and transformation for my creativity and for my voice. And since then, I have performed on hundreds of stages, and I've spearheaded some theatrical music groups focused on empowering women and femmes. I've recorded and produced several albums and singles and won an award for Best Vermont Rock Album for my participation in it. I've created my own music videos and blog, and I'm just never ever gonna hide my creative soul ever again. And now I get to help other women do the same. So understanding how to leverage your creativity so that you actually can like gain more time and energy instead of feeling like you keep putting things off over and over again. I think to sum that part all up is that I really want everybody to know that your creative voice is your birthright as a human being. And that includes your physical voice. It's part of your body. And of course, that's your birthright. Your body is part of your birthright, and everything that exists is part of it. And your desire and motivation and inspiration to express yourself creatively. It is your birthright as a human being. Creativity is not a luxury. It's a basic human need. Everybody in the GatherVerse who might long to feel the joy of being creative, like when you were a kid, and to express yourself creatively, like that could be anything from publishing your book to working with the craft supplies that you bought to starting your business, but you are somehow not seeming to find the time or the energy or the inspiration to follow through on that. Get some mindset shifts. I hope you're getting them elsewhere here. I'm sure you are, to kind of overcome self-doubt that block your creative motivation and inspiration. I do have a free meditation to share to help you to reignite your creative spark, and that's at resource.growyourwholevoice.com. Thank you so much for being in the GatherVerse here with me. My name is Jenny Eleonora. Bye.
Eat. Eat smart to balance and maintain good health by unlocking the power of traditional Chinese medicine herbal foods, or TCM herbal foods. Did I just encourage you folks to eat? Yes, absolutely. We must eat and enjoy our foods, but not just eat anything. We should be eating well, eating in the right proportions, and eat foods infused with TCM herbs to transform the way our body thrives. TCM herbs can restore the balance, boost one's energy, and revitalize one's health. What you eat today determines how you feel, not now, but years from now. Every meal is a choice between nourishing or depleting our body. As women, we give endlessly to our families, often forgetting to care for ourselves. But to love and support others, we must first nourish our well-being. Whether managing meals at home or juggling multiple roles, as wife, as mothers, as daughter, as sister, we need that energy. We need that confidence and the inner balance. The key is to eating right. With the right nutrition, especially from herbal foods, we can stay strong, resilient, and radiate health from within. Now, you may wonder, adding TCM herbs into food, would it taste nice? Would it taste good? Perhaps it will taste bitter. Perhaps it's too herby for me. Well, that's the general perception of traditional Chinese medicine herbs because they are used as medicine. And we all know that medicine never tastes nice. Visualize with me. Lamb shanks marinated with licorice and Chinese angelica herbs, roasted to the right tenderness, and then served in this rich herbal sauce. What about a nice chilled cocktail infused with chrysanthemum and red dates, a perfect cooler after a hard day's work? In fact, a very refreshing way to give you the Zen. Now, these two examples that I've mentioned, the first is actually very good for women to nourish their blood. And for the other cocktail drink is actually a very nice, balanced, drink to reduce the body heat. So these are very ideal for women to maintain good health. Now you see, there are some 5,000 different types of herbs recorded in the Chinese Materia Medica, 本草纲目. It is a medical journal. And it is used many thousands of years, by all the various physicians, right? What I have described earlier are some of the 100 types of herbs that are suitable to be consumed as foods. In other words, they are better in taste. It actually has different, properties. And of course, the taste is actually more suitable to be used as food ingredients. And using herbal foods to restore our health is known as food therapy. In TCM's perspective, it is a profound knowledge practiced many thousands of years already. And with accurate diagnosis of one's health condition, a knowledge of the body constitution, coupled with the right selection of herbs at the right dosage, it is used to manage one's ailment and effectively heal certain conditions. With my skills in home cooking and having served as the brand and communications director in a former listed Singapore TCM company for over a decade, I have acquired very good knowledge of TCM herbs and food therapy. I have been invited by banks like UBS, Citibank, and even SIA to curate herbal food events for their VIPs and high net worth customers, partnering with Michelin star chefs to put up such events. Now, I'm not a physician per se, so I use the herbal foods for health maintenance, simplifying it to a daily consumption as food. And this is very different from treatment of any ailments. It is all about prevention. It is all about maintaining good health before the illness sets in. By now, you probably agree with me that the secret to lifelong health isn't in the pill. It's on our plate. You'll be asking, how do I get started, especially when I'm ignorant of these herbs and its therapeutic benefits? An easy way out is to read my book, Herbalicious, and to get a basic understanding of these commonly used herbs, or connect with me via LinkedIn, and I will post on herbal foods that can boost our energy, have glowing skin, relieve fatigue, and the list can go on. Do connect with me. For now, thank you for this opportunity to share on unlocking the power of TCM herbal foods for health maintenance. Have a very good day and to very good health. Thank you.
Hello, friends. I'm honored to be here today speaking on a very important topic, and that is how we can heal from sexual violence and sexual abuse. The statistics are sad and scary, and that is that 1 in 5 women have experienced an attempted or complete rape. 53% have experienced some sort of sexual violence, and 81% have experienced sexual harassment in their lifetime. The good news is that there is a pathway to freedom, and it is a full body, mind, and spirit approach. As an engineer turned spiritual guide, I take a scientific approach to healing, and that is looking at the unified field where every atom is just made of energy. Only 5% of our visible universe is actually physical matter, and that actually translates to the body. So, when a body experiences trauma, such as sexual violence, there is an energetic imprint made from the abuser. So, of course, there's the mental and emotional imprint that the experiencer experiences, but then there is also an energetic imprint that gets put into the body from the abuser that remains in the body until it can be released. Traditional therapies don't take care of this type of invisible energy because it's a spiritual approach. I'm talking about the unified field and how we can remove this energy altogether. The approach that I take to healing sexual abuse in the purpose embodiment method is shamanic in nature. I knew I was onto something with this method when a childhood friend reached out to me and shared to me that she had experienced sexual abuse as a child, molestation, as well as a rape in her adulthood. Now, I was so honored when I heard from her after our third session, and she said, Lynn, I just was intimate with my husband for the first time since I finished working with you, and I was so surprised that there were no more flashbacks. We both looked at each other and cried because we knew that something was different. So what was different? The imprint was released. In the spiritual world, in the shamanic world, there are techniques called soul retrievals and extractions, where one who has the gift and the belief and the techniques can enter the energy field of a person and remove the imprints of others that don't belong there. And so in this method, I go into the energy field of the victim and I pull out the energy of the abuser. Now, I know that this doesn't really make sense to a lot of people, but it is what it is. Energy is just energy. And I, as the observer, I, with the power of my belief and my technique, am able to remove this energy. And not only do I remove it to the energy, but I send it to a portal through healing. I send it to an ascended master realm. I send it off to be healed. The second part of this method is called a soul retrieval, because what happens is when you receive an imprint, there's only space for 100%, right? So if I'm bringing in someone else's energy, a part of my energy has to go away. And so this is the idea of losing a part of yourself when we experience these traumas. So in addition to extracting the energy of the abuser, I call out through all space and time to retrieve back the soul essence, the innocence of the person that has been sexually abused or assaulted. I know what I'm saying is outside the mainstream belief of the way the world works. And this emotion is my heart authentically telling you that there is magic in the world. There are ways to transform and heal the energy and heal the human body that we just don't know about yet. But the shamans and the mystics and the healers have always known that there is a path to freedom. And so if you are experiencing any sort of pain in your life, mental, emotional, and spiritual, because of sexual abuse or sexual assault, I want you to know that there is a path to freedom and I can help. And I would love nothing more than to connect with you more deeply so that we as women who have experienced some of the most traumatic things that a human can experience can join hands together and say, we are free. Many blessings.
Leadership coach specializing in helping you master the art of influence and leave a lasting. Hi everyone, I'm Nicola Navone, a communication and leadership coach specializing in helping you master the art of influence and leave a lasting impact across work, relationships, and life. Using emotional intelligence, masterful communication, and balancing of masculine and feminine traits within a dynamic and an individual. Why? I work in both contexts because how you show up in one area of life impacts how you show up in the other. If you're overextending yourself and burned out in work, chances are you're doing the same thing in relationship. According to a Harvard study of adult development, strong, healthy relationships boost life satisfaction, and have a profound impact on physical health and longevity. So this speaks to how healthy relationships directly impact fulfillment and satisfaction, and that directly impacts physical health. Now, what creates strong, healthy relationships? It's when they're in balance. Because when relationships are off balance, what happens? There's an uneven give and take. There's an uneven distribution of tasks and responsibilities, and this also creates hierarchy and uneven power dynamics. Now that leads to resentment, frustration that impacts our fulfillment, which impacts our health. Now, what creates balanced relationships? This is balanced dynamics within. Because when you're off balance, think about it like a scale, what happens? You're ungrounded, you're not secure, you're not making decisions from a place of clarity, or maybe you're too focused in doing and producing traditional masculine traits, and you're not spending as much time inward reflection, nurturing and tending to your mental and physical well-being, feminine traits. And then what happens is burnout, exhaustion, and this directly translates to illness. And so balancing both masculine and feminine traits is essential to having balance in relationships, which leads to fulfillment and better health. Now, masculine and feminine traits, we all have different levels of both, pending our childhood and pending what phase of your life you're in. Now, I want you to think about the masculine traits as the more active, action-oriented traits, and feminine traits as more passive, reflective-oriented traits. So I'm going to give you just a couple of traits, and we're going to go through so that you can think about where you can do work to bring greater balance into your being. Think of the masculine as producing, working towards your goals. Now, these traits are essential for you to have success at work. Now, how do you balance that with also spending time to nurture your body and mind? Yoga, meditation, contemplation. Now, when you master this balance, this is going to help you because a sound body and mind is essential to be able to create amazing work in the world. It's going to help you thrive. Now let's come back to the masculine. Another masculine trait is asserting of your desires and your boundaries. Now, how do you balance this? Because this is important in the workplace or in partnership with your ability to listen, to read dynamics, to read nonverbal cues, to feel in, is this a time to share something? How is the person responding to me? And using through your listening, emotional intelligence to be able to adjust your communication from there. Now, when you have a balance, this is going to empower you to have more resonance, whether it's at work or at home with whoever that you're communicating with. Let's go to another masculine trait, assertiveness and decisiveness. Now, this is essential if you're leading teams and even in partnership, being able to know what you want. Now, how do you balance these masculine traits with the feminine trait of curiosity? How is that landing for you? What's that activating within you? What are your thoughts on that? Whether you're speaking to your team or your partner, when you do this, what you're actually doing is you're boosting engagement. You're bringing people along with you so they feel more emotionally invested. And this is how you have a deeper impact in all of your relationships. Let's go to one last one. Think about the masculine trait as the structure. It's the anchor, grounding in, let's say, your core values as an individual or an organization, where everything operates around that anchor. Yeah, or it can also be your systems, your routines. Now that makes way for you then to tune into the feminine trait of fluidity, agility, innovation. Because you've got that anchor, it's going to allow that sense of fluidity in times of challenge and help you feel more grounded through the unknown. So there you have it. When you have this greater balance and you're more conscious of balancing masculine and feminine traits within, it's going to impact your relationships in all areas of your life. And this directly ties to your fulfillment and to better health as a result. If you want to learn more tools around communication and leadership or balance, Follow me at nicolanavone.com. Sign up for our newsletter for more information. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a message. I would love to hear what landed for you. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Hello and welcome to Birth VR. I am Marina Siivola. I'm an engineer. I have worked in the healthcare sector and I'm an educator, teacher, and e-learning manager. Parents are currently unprepared for birth. About only half of the parents who are pregnant get ready for birth. And only 1/3 of the people who do prepare reach the main learning goals of childbirth education. This has consequences. It increases stress, fear of childbirth, complications, anxiety, and it decreases parents' mental health, coping abilities, and ability to make informed decisions during pregnancy and during birth. We studied the user needs and tried to figure out why people do not prepare for birth. Issues that rose from the user studies were that parents want more flexibility to the training, they want better accessibility, more realistic information and knowledge that they can apply in their birth. And at the same time, we are in the middle of parents' mental health crises. This has been noted worldwide. The families are struggling. There is a lot of mental health issues going on, and the children are the ones suffering from the situation, and we could do better. So one solution that will ease the parents' stress and anxiety could be Birth VR. So they can experience what it is to give birth, how to interact with the midwife, how to use non-medical pain relief. And this will answer some of the user requirements that the users had. This is online. It's flexible to use whenever they want to, whatever time of pregnancy they want to have the education. It is very realistic. When the people see what's going on and how these pain relief methods are used, they can actually apply it in their own birth. At the same time, this could be a tour of the hospital birth ward. Nowadays, not everybody get to see their birth ward. So there is anxiety around what does it look like? Where do I need to go? How does everything work? So this can be an answer to that. And this is very accessible. Addition to the VR headset that not everybody has yet, this can be used on different devices. It can be on a computer, and parents wanted to use it on a computer with a support person they're going to birth with, or then they used mobile phone on the way when they were commuting to work or from work. So this is a very flexible way to have childbirth education. We validated the program with users. So we had first parents who have given birth, then we had expecting parents, and then midwives. And the results were good. Learning outcomes were improved. The users felt that they were in the birthing room. Usability score of the program was proper. And then the 360 videos especially added value to the users. The VR headset didn't bring as much added value, but the 360 videos did. We also tried flipped learning. So we had online classroom, online course where the parents could take the basic childbirth education courses, but then also we had online meetings regularly where the parents could come and talk about childbirth, ask their questions, and have the connection with the professional that they wanted. And this worked really well. And surprising result was that they also got very strong peer support during these meetings. So summary of the results, Birth VR do bring added value to the user. It provides concrete and realistic user experience, improves learning outcomes, gives flexibility to take childbirth education, and provides communication or contact with the professional as well as peer support. Thank you. There is my contact information, so please reach out if you have any questions.
How many of you have ever felt completely drained, yet still got up and carried on? How many of you have smiled through exhaustion, pushed through fear, and ignored your own pain because there was simply no time to stop? Now, let me ask you something harder. When was the last time you truly cared for yourself? Not your children, not your work, not your endless to do list. You. Hi, everyone. This is Asma Parveen. I want to talk about the silent epidemic today. The truth is, the biggest threat to women's health today isn't just disease, it's neglect. Not neglect by doctors or science, but by ourselves. We take care of everyone, our families, our careers, our responsibilities. But while we are busy being everything to everyone, we are losing ourselves. Women are twice as likely as men to suffer from anxiety and depression. We struggle with chronic fatigue, unexplained body aches, and emotional exhaustion. And yet we tell ourselves, I'm fine, I just need to push through. But here's the truth, we are not fine. We cannot heal what we refuse to acknowledge. We talk about heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. But what about the invisible illness that's destroying women's health every single day? Emotional pain. The stress that tightens our chests, the fear that keeps us up at night, the self doubt that whispers, you're not enough. This is the silent epidemic no one talks about. Medicine treats symptoms. But what about the silent battles we fight? Self doubt, fear, and emotional burnout. Imagine a healthcare system that treats not just the symptoms, but the woman behind them. A system that understands that stress, fear, or past trauma can manifest as migraines, infertility, or chronic fatigue. We often talk about medical advancements, but let's talk about something equally powerful: emotional well being. This is where Bach flower remedies, homeopathy, and nutrition offer something revolutionary. Bach flower remedies heal deep seated wounds, emotional wounds like fear, exhaustion, hopelessness. Homeopathy just doesn't suppress symptoms, it listens to the body and restores balance. Nutrition isn't just about food, it's about fueling mental strength and emotional resilience. Because healing isn't just about the body, it's about the heart, the mind, and the soul. How many times have you gone to bed feeling completely drained, only to wake up just as exhausted? How many times have you held back tears in a meeting, put on a brave face, and told the world, I've got this, when deep inside you felt like you were falling apart? We tell ourselves we don't have time to rest, to heal, to feel. But if we don't, our bodies will force us to, through illness, through burnout, through breaking down when we least expect it. Women, we cannot pour from an empty cup. We cannot keep giving when we are running on empty. Healing isn't selfish, it's essential. And it starts with the courage to say, I matter too. We fight for so many things: equality, opportunity, success. But the greatest battle we must fight is the one within, the battle to heal, to rest, to feel, to be whole again. So I ask you, when will you stop surviving and start truly living? Because when a woman is healed, she doesn't just survive, she thrives. And when she thrives, she changes the world. But first, she must choose herself. So I leave you with this. When will you finally choose yourself? Because when you do, the world will feel your power. Thank you.
The first 3 months of GatherVerse Q1 has concluded. We've had the superhero engine, She Summit. We've had the artificial intelligence, 3rd annual summit. We've had the GatherVerse 2025, 4th annual summit. And now we've had the Women's Health Summit 2025, day 2. As quick as it comes is as quick as it goes. We've heard heartfelt expressions from hundreds of you that have come to assemble with us to the very end at GatherVerse.live. This is one of the most impactful summits we've ever had. Informative, guided. As a man, I can surely say I have benefited from being part of this summit. I've learned more about women and things that I never knew. Things that I didn't even know that I wanted to know, I now know. But I am still a student. We must allow for grace. We must allow for people to come to where we're at. Some of my biggest takeaways when it comes to the human body, what is it that we truly know? When it comes to the pain and suffering and difficulties and hardships of others, what is it that we truly know about their plight, their experiences? Might we enter these discussions with grace, with empathy, to have a better appreciation for what somebody, your neighbor, your friend, a stranger, is experiencing. You never really know what someone else is experiencing. We have these summits because if not us, then who? We talk about these things in an attempt to be able to keep up with the hyperscale and the cadence of emerging technologies. I want to give a special shout out to the GatherVerse team and the production. One heck of a job for these free attended events. What a heck of a job. I'm honored to be able to stand with you, to build with you, to chop wood with you. This doesn't happen without you and more. So we're thankful. I'm going to give a shout out to all of our speakers, our leaders, both men and women, that come to assemble with us, a global community. We thank you. We're grateful for your time. We know time is a thing you do not get back, and that every moment is precious, and we value that. We want to thank the audience, those who have never spoken in a GatherVerse but are persistently and consistently with us, filling the halls of GatherVerse.live and multi-stream, going after multi-stream after multi-stream, wherever you may be in the world. Transmetropolitan, transcontinental, we say thank you. We greet you at this intersection of emerging technologies and humanity. We greet you with peace and kindness and curiosity. This was our 30th Global GatherVerse Summit event. Our 30th. And in many ways, I felt like we've barely even begun. We're working on incredible summits and collaborations right now that will deploy and launch soon. Some you know of: GatherVerse Youth Summit, GatherVerse XRE Volve Summit. But we have some special summits that are coming up soon. We're really excited to share them. We're working and building on them now, and we're not alone. But I'll leave you with this. What have you gained with your time here with GatherVerse? And what have you lost? What have you learned with your time listening to these leaders that presented themselves before us in expression? Will you take time to share this with someone? But more importantly, will you take time to live this? To take it in? To make sense of all of this with whatever time we have to do such things? The only thing we ask from you at GatherVerse is not your money. We don't want it. We ask that you take in consideration of the things that have been presented before you. We ask that you demonstrate compassion and kindness. We ask that if you're provided and afforded the opportunity, tell somebody about the things that you've heard today. Share this story, because we can't share it ourselves. And we are all subjected to algorithms and digital expression until perhaps one day we're not. Many of you are building incredible and wonderful, powerful technology. I hope that you're funded soon. I hope that people take time to download what it is that you've taken days, months, or even years to build. I hope someone buys your book. I hope someone follows you on social media and sends a message and simply says hello or thank you or how can I help? I hope that I'm not alone as we continue to move forward. This world is changing, and it is dark, but the light still shines. Oh, yes, it does. I believe this with all my heart, and I am spiritually thankful for this opportunity to help lead in servant leadership with excellence, with a servant's heart. This GatherVerse experience, this community that's collectively made up of all of us and so much more. So this week, our Gather was well. And as we move forward towards more events, we hope that we'll continue to demonstrate trust, commitment, and dedication in serving the global GatherVerse community. Farewell to all of you. Care, be kind and compassionate. And lastly, when it comes to the subject of our health and well-being, and with great empathy for others, please, with all that you can, with all that you can muster, enter into these narratives with grace. And when we see each other again, may our gather be well.
She sewed my new blue jeans. My father was a gambling man on down in New Orleans. Now the only thing a gambler needs is a suitcase and a trunk. And the only time he's satisfied is when he's on a drug. Oh, mothers, tell your children not to do what I have done. Spend your lives in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun. Well, I got one foot on the platform, the other foot on the trail. Going back to New Orleans to wear that ball and chain. Well, there is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, I